Yeah, I think that's working. Hi, this is Muhammad Rahmat, and I'm gonna be trying to explain some of the standard JavaScript methods or functions. So this is my first time actually recording something that I would be explaining. Usually it's just somebody asks me something and I just explain to them, and this will be a bit of a different experience for me. I'm just gonna go through the basic JavaScript methods or initializations or whatever there is. This will not be anything related to ECMAScripts or the newer JavaScript functions. So this will probably be supported by most of the browsers, even Internet Explorer. Yes, the IE, the legendary IE itself. So let's start with something simple like initializing an array. Let's suppose we have an array with elements 1, 3, 4, 5. So this is basically a 4-index array having 4 elements. We could, for the rest of this recording, I'm just going to use console log to print out whatever I'm doing. I thought about using the console, but I'm just used to Visual Studio Code. So let's try and print out the second element of the array. Yes, the array starts with the index 0. It's always like that, whatever language you are using. So let's see. That printed out the second element 3. And next thing, let's use the method push, which is gonna push an element, the given element, at the end of the array as the last index itself. Let's see the result of that. Actually, I wanted to console just the array itself. There we go. There is a new element A at the end of the array. We can always remove the last element by using the method pop. This just deletes the last element inside the array. If we wanted to search something, like let's try and search for the element 1. Now this thing gives us the index of the element inside the array, the first occurrence of the element inside the array. If you see, we just got 0 and not the last one. If there is an element that is not present inside the array, we will get -1. -1 here means that the element is not present inside the array. And let's try and loop through the array. There is the basic for loop method for this, so we can use for index in x, for each index in x. I am just gonna console log the index, or actually I'm gonna print out the value of that index. Oops. There we go. All the values are printed out there. There's also the method for each, which basically does the same thing, except it requires us to define a function which takes an argument. The argument is the element of the element is the value of the actually this argument is the value of the element inside x. We could show that by just console.log element, and it will be printing us all the elements the same way as we had done before. So next, let's go over objects. Let's assume we have an object with the property A having value 1, property B having value 2, and property C having value apples. Now we could interact with objects the same way as we would do it as an arrays. Let's say that we are going through the object X having the property A. Remember, this is not index. This is basically a string which is the name of the property. Let's assume this was my property 1. So this name is property 1 and we are going to define it there. It should basically give us the value 1. And we could also interact with it this way, like defining the property name inside the variable. Property 1. And we could just call that here. This will basically give us the value of the property inside the object X. We could also interact with objects as object dot property name. This is the most usual way that properties are interacted with. Let's call the C. So let's try and define a more complex version of the objects. Let's assume that Z is an array of different elements. Let's say the first element is a string, the second element is an int, and the third element is an object. Actually, I'm just going to give it the object X, and having another array having values 2, 3, another object inside it. The object will have property X is 1, Y 2, and the property Z having value X. Let's just print that array. Here we go. This is interacted the same way as we would interact with any standard array. Let's get the let's suppose we wanted to get the fourth element, or actually let's go with the third element first. So this will give me the third element, which is basically the object X. Now let's try and get the fourth element, which has the index 3. So this will just give me this object having 3 elements, having 3 properties. We could also add X there, which will keep adding and adding. We could always work around with these. Let's talk about JavaScript functions. Assume that we have a function test having an argument arg1. This is then pretty much the same way as we'll do it in any other programming languages. We can do whatever we want inside the function, any logical or operational stuff. For now, I'm just going to print out that arg1, and we can just call this the same way as we would call any function in any programming language. Let's give it my name is Mr. X. This should just print out the arg1, which is my name is Mr. X. I'm really limited here with my recording resources, so I can't really switch to the browser to show some other stuff, but I think I can go with, okay, I know I said I won't be showing any ECMAScript or anything else, but just as a bonus, let me just go around with arrow functions. Now, arrow functions is a new way to define functions in ECMAScript or higher JavaScript versions. So what we do here is, instead of writing the function test as something like that, we can just initialize it as a variable having arg1. Now this will just do the same thing as we had done before, like in the other one. Now let's call this test2. So if I call test, my name is Mr. X, this will be the same standard way that we had done before. Now if I call the variable test2, it will call the function arg1, which will still be the same thing. Now we could keep adding args here, like arg2. This is just the same way as we would do any other function. Actually, I am not Mr. X. And we could concatenate strings here using that, which will give us the combination of both strings, concatenation of them. Concatenation reminds me, we could get substrings. Let's say we have a string X, my name is Mr. X, and we could always, actually let me just print that out, console log x.substring. There are actually two methods, so we are gonna give the arguments as the index that we wanted to start taking this substring. Let's say I want to take it from the beginning and I want a length of 10. Just comment that out. Commenting is the same. There we go. My name is Mr. X, 10. Wow, I actually messed up, but you have to print it out there. So we just get the first 10 characters of the string. And okay, that's more than 10 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the standard JavaScript basics, and see you next time.